I needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. There you were. With sweet love and devotion, sweetly touching my emotion. I wanna stop and thank you, baby. I just wanna stop and thank you, baby. How sweet it is to be loved by you. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
Hi there. You would have just watched the first clip now of Connor singing. So the first clip took place on the water in Collingwood, and it actually took place on a stage where there's a natural amphitheater kind of carved out into a hill. So there's rock seats, and they kind of go up into three different sections where the audience can sit, and it's a round kind of semicircle seating, like in a coliseum, like a half coliseum kind of style. And the stage is right by the water, so the audience faces the water and the singer faces towards the audience. So this type of seating is very much like the outdoor opera festival that happens in Austria. And I decided to do my first clip there to demonstrate what sound and what singing sounds like by the water. And as that was kind of my main focus of this research project, was to see what sound sounds like by water, how it kind of bounces off the water, how it reflects the water, and how other sounds also come into that. So in this first audio clip, something that really caught my attention was that you can hear all the birds chirping as well as the sound. And I think this is my second favorite in terms of how Connor's voice actually sounded when I was recording him. And my number one favorite, which I'll be talking about a bit later, was filmed actually at a park. And so throughout this research video, you're going to be able to see 5 different locations that I filmed Connor in singing. 2 of them on the water, one of them is by the road, so you can hear traffic going by. It's on a trail in a forest. The 4th clip is at a park in big cement circles, so his voice really echoes off the cement. And the 5th one is kind of sort of like a walkthrough audio singing recording that I did, kind of like the Journey Through the Labyrinth, how you walked through that and it was an experience, a sounding experience and a theater experience. I kind of did the same with Connor and really kind of experimented with how his voice sounded in different locations during a walkthrough. So I really hope that you enjoy this research. It was really fun to record, and I found some really cool stuff out about sound that I never knew before. So I'm really excited to share this with you, and I hope you enjoyed the first clip, and now you can watch the second clip.
I needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. There you were. With sweet love and devotion, gently touching my emotions. I wanna stop and thank you, baby. I just wanna stop and thank you, baby. How sweet it is to be loved by you. It's not sugar sometimes, yeah. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
So now you've just watched the second clip of Connor singing, and this was filmed in the same location as the first one, but we walked out onto rocks, and I believe I have pictures of this that I will attach as well. So what we did is we walked out onto a rock, and it was actually in the middle of the water. So there was water surrounding it on, I guess, 3 sides. And it really just, I really wanted to show this so that it showed how water on all sides of you, and say you were out on an island, or you actually put the stage like they do at the Austria Opera Festival. They actually put the stage out in the water and they anchor it down into the ground beneath the water, and it just shows how sound can be reflected and it can be projected off the water. So kind of like sun in a way too, when the sun hits the water and it reflects back and hits you, as I'm sitting outside in the beautiful weather right now. So this second clip was really interesting, and I believe his sound kind of varies a little bit from the first one. They're very similar, but it's a little bit more echoey from the water. But it's interesting because it's echoey, but it also gets absorbed by the water as well, because water is this very fluid thing that can be solid, can be liquid, and I find it really interesting how his voice was different in both clips, but similar, like I said, because it was on the water in both. But in this second clip here, he was actually surrounded by the water, and the camera was out on the water as well that I was recording with. And a note that I'd like to make for all of these recordings is that I just filmed it on a Canon T3i camera that I have. I really would have liked to have sound equipment, like a microphone, so that you could actually hear his voice a bit better, and it would be a little bit more authentic to how opera performances and theater performances are, as there's microphones, there's sound equipment and stuff like that being used. But I think that this is almost more interesting because it's just genuinely his voice and the natural environmental sounds. So you're actually not getting that influence from the sound equipment, which I think is really cool. And a lot of opera singers aren't mic'd when they sing. So I think that it was really genuine and authentic to an opera performance and how it would be performed, and how an outdoor opera would possibly be performed as well. So yeah, this second one I think was really interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now we're on to the third one, which is away from the water, so we get a different look at a different soundscape.
I needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. There you were. Oh, yeah, with sweet love and devotion, gently touching my emotions. I wanna stop. Thank you, baby. I just wanna stop. Thank you, baby. Yeah. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
So the third clip here is Connor singing in on a forest walkway that's right beside the road. So you can actually hear a lot of traffic noises as the cars go by, which is really interesting because when I was recording it, the cars sounded really loud when I was actually there with the camera. And as an actual audience member sitting in a location like this, I think it would be really distracting from the performance. However, in the recorded version, you really pick up on his voice, and his voice almost overpowers the traffic noises and the natural environmental noises that are happening. So I find that interesting, and I also find that interesting because that shows how technology acts as a medium. That's not necessarily true to the authentic performance or the authentic picture or song or anything like that. As I said, as an actual audience member being there, I would be extremely distracted from all the sounds of traffic, and his voice almost got absorbed by that and overpowered by that. But on the recording, you can really hear his voice and you really focus on it. So in this clip, I find it interesting to see how technology can have an effect on sound. And also how different sound environments affect audiences differently. So in the past 2 clips where he was by the water, you could hear sounds of birds. In the second clip, you heard swan sounds. Those were white trumpeter swans in the background. And it almost added to the performance, whereas in this one, the sound of the traffic almost takes away from it, or at least it did in person. In the recording, a little bit less. But it's really just interesting how all these natural and man-made sounds can affect it. So I think it's interesting that, you know, natural sounds like birds chirping and animals making sounds and stuff isn't as distracting, and like I said, almost adds to the performance, whereas these man-made sounds like traffic, people talking, traffic lights, sirens, stuff like that, they almost affect the performance more. So it's really interesting to see how both these kind of natural sounds, even though one's man-made and one is literally animals, and say the trees blowing in the wind and stuff like that, really interesting to see how they impact it in the same way, but two very different ways. It can either take away from the performance or add to the performance. And I don't think any is necessarily bad. I think it's just an experience that you need to be ready for when you sign up for the performance or something like that. If you're going to see outdoor opera, you need to be aware of the fact that, you know, you're outdoor in an environment, there's water, there's animals, there's things that you can't control, as opposed to in a theater where everything inside of a theater you can control. You can control the sound, you can control the audience, kind of, there's rules, whereas outdoor theater, anything can happen. A thunderstorm could roll in, and now the opera is being performed in the middle of pouring rain, or fire trucks could go by, like in this recording, there could have been sirens go by, and that just affects it totally differently. So this next recording I'm about to show you was recorded in a park, and these next two are my favorite, so I'm excited to share these ones.
I needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. There you were. With sweet love and devotion, sweetly touching my emotions. I wanna stop. Thank you, baby. I just wanna stop. Thank you, baby. How sweet it is to be loved by you. How sweet it is to be loved by you.
So this fourth recording here was recorded at a park. Inside, as you can see, a big circular cylinder kind of tube. And as you notice, I started recording Connor singing outside of the tube, and his voice kind of sounded similar to the other recordings in a way. It sounded like it was being kind of absorbed by being outside in such a large space. However, when I moved inside to the tube with him, his voice was super echoey, and you can really hear that in the recording, and even more so in person. So this just goes to show how architecture can really affect sound, and it can really affect the quality of sound, and it can affect your experience with sound. So if, say, for example, the audience here were to be sitting outside of the cylinder, they wouldn't have the same sounding experience as you would sitting inside of the cylinder, which is really interesting too. And that just goes to show how the acoustics of different spaces are very different. Obviously, with outdoor spaces, your acoustics aren't as good, say, as if you were inside a cathedral or a theater that was specifically architecturally designed to have amazing acoustics, like the Canadian Opera Company theaters, like our theaters at Queen's, and especially opera theaters. Obviously, they're specifically designed so that the sound can be maximized, so that you can have the best quality of sound as possible. And you just don't get that outdoors. But there's something about outdoor theater and outdoor opera that is a completely different experience, and I absolutely love it, which is why I decided to do this research project on this topic. And there's something about experiential theater and site-specific theater and site-specific opera as well, which is what I touch on in the next video.
I needed the shelter of someone's arms. There you were. I needed someone to understand my ups and downs. There you were. With sweet love and devotion, sweetly touching my emotions. I want to stop and thank you, baby. I just want to stop and thank you, baby. How sweet it is to be loved by you. how sweet it is to be loved by you. Oh, na, 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 na.
So this last video here was the video I talked about at the beginning. That is a walkthrough of Connor singing through the different cylinders at the park. And what I really find interesting about this is how much the sound changes depending on where he is. So we start in the big cylinder where it's very echoey, but you can kind of still hear outdoor natural sounds. And then when we step outside, his vocal sound completely gets absorbed by the outdoors, by the trees, by just how big the space is, by the water which is nearby, and almost gets sucked up. You can't hear him as well. The quality of the sound isn't as good. But as we keep going, we go into smaller cylinders where his voice is even more echoey, and the acoustic sound a lot more rounded, if that makes sense, than outside, and even more so than in the big cylinder. And I think the difference of going in and out of the cylinders is very interesting as well. His sound went from being super echoey to being absorbed, to super echoey to being absorbed, and in and out until we got to the end. And I think that this is kind of an experience that I think would be really cool if the audience was almost blindfolded and you didn't really know what you were walking through. It'd be scary. You'd have to duck so you don't bump your head on those cylinders because some of them were pretty small and short. But I think that there's something very, very interesting about site-specific theater and about theater and opera that was like Journey Through the Labyrinth, which I would have absolutely loved to partake in. There's this sense of you're not just experiencing what you're hearing sitting in a dark theater. I mean, obviously you have a beautiful set on stage, and then the opera singers start to sing and the orchestra starts to play, and that's amazing. But I think that there's something genuinely incredible about site-specific theater, and like the Journey Through the Labyrinth, and like this experiment that I did with Connor at the park, that you're experiencing sound in a completely different way. You're not sitting in a dark theater expecting to hear the orchestra start to play and expecting to hear the opera singer start to sing, and the Viking horn and shattering the glass like in Harry Potter kind of opera singing. You're there and you're listening to your own footsteps on the ground, and you're listening to the birds chirping and the wind blowing in the trees, and you're listening to the sand underneath your feet and the echo of the cement, and if you touch the cement you can feel it, but you can hear your hands drag across it too. And I think that this kind of experience is something that opera companies and theater companies should be and are kind of starting to move towards, this experiential theater, this interactive theater and opera. And I think it's really interesting because this interactive theater has been around for quite a while. I mean, Landline, it comes in waves, the Jordan Tannehill one over on Toronto Island. I mean, there's lots of instances of this, but opera hasn't really gotten into this yet. And I think that's because there's this stigma around opera of that it is to go sit in this grand theater, and it's, to sit in this dark room and be quiet, and the lights go down and then the stage lights come up and this grand performance happens. And I don't think that people really see opera in this interactive way, this experiential way, and I think that's something definitely worth considering, and something that I experimented with here, and I would have loved to have more time with this, and I also would have loved to try it over 4 different seasons, and I think that I will continue my research. I'd love to try it in the summer, in a forest, by a creek, have the water sounds, and I'd also love to try this with an actual opera singer as well. Like I said, I unfortunately couldn't get in touch with any opera singers that were willing and able to do this performance for me, which is unfortunate, and it's something that I would have really liked to have, but Connor was great, and as you notice, he sang the same song throughout all of the clips, and that was so that you could really compare the vocal quality and the tone in each and every different environment, and how the environments influenced his own vocal sound differently. And as you can see in all 5 different clips, it is very different how his voice was affected by the natural environment, and how all the different sounds, so the ducks, the swans, then the traffic, then we move into the tubes, how each and every one was so different, and how choosing your specific environment is so important for the actual opera and theater experience. You don't want to be putting on, a very intimate opera about a very specific subject near a road where there's traffic and people will get distracted. Maybe putting it by the water is different because water itself can be seen as this very delicate but also very furious thing. So it's really interesting how environments can actually play on the entire theme and on the sounding experience that you want to create. So I really hope that you liked my research. Like I said, this research is not done. It's not conclusive. I still have a lot of questions to ask myself, and I have a lot of research to do myself. You'll notice that I actually decided to record these videos outside so that there's all these natural sounds taking place as well. A motorcycle just went by, which is what made me realize that I should mention this as well. This is why I decided to record it outside. But like I said, this research is not conclusive yet, and I will absolutely let you know more of my findings as I research it a little bit more, because experiential theater is something, and outdoor theater and outdoor opera is something that I would really like to work on in the future, and is actually something I think I have a little project I'm going to start this summer at my job, so I'm really excited to get that going, and I really hope that you like this research project. It's a bit scattered, I know. I really wanted to go with this video, almost documentary style format. I think it's really interesting and really helps encapsulate what I've been doing, and really helps kind of portray my ideas and my thoughts in the best way possible. I don't think an essay would have been able to do this properly, especially since my clips were of Connor actually talking. And like I said, I wanted to record this in a natural environment where my sound is being influenced by the things around me, and you can't really express that in a paper. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed my research. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, and I'm really excited to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you so much.